let's now get started and let's see what we have. So GitHub and GitHub Copilot. So in this episode of today, we're going to find out what is GitHub, how to download and install Git, configuring Git, that is your email and username, signing up for GitHub, initializing a Git repository, adding files to your Git repo, committing your changes, and then pushing your code to GitHub repository. So these are the fundamentals that you need to know before doing any other thing. And once we go through all this, you will be able to start working with Git and GitHub comfortably. Let's move on. So if you have any question, feel free to ask any question on the chats. Madi will be there to take note of the questions and also to answer some where possible. So let's get started. What is GitHub? So GitHub is a web-based platform that allows developers to collaborate on projects and share code with one another. It is a version control system that provides a platform for software developers to store and manage their code, as well as track changes to their code over time. It also allows developers to work together, including tools for code review, issue tracking, and project management. It is used by millions of developers around the world to contribute to open source projects, collaborate on private projects with teams, and showcase their work to potential employers. So when we talk about GitHub, you can see that the most common term here is collaborate. So also another term is a version control system. So to give you an example, let's say right now you are supposed to work on a project. So when you start your project, let's say it's an industry project or for your company. We'll have the initial step to set up your project. And then once it's set up, you will be working on this project amongst other members of your team. For example, we have those who will be working on the front end, those who will be building backends, those who will be responsible for working with external APIs. And also, if you leave that aside, even in the front end, you want to be working alone. Maybe you're working with a team. Suppose we have a project that has different pages. For example, let's say we have a booking page and also we have a signing page. So how are we able to collaboratively work together on this project and to ensure that we have one goal and we expect to build one product in the end? This is all made possible through GitHub, because through this, I will be able to work on the same code base and I will be able to track the various versions of the application that we have been building. So this will be made practical to you once we get into the actual code labs, so that I'll demonstrate everything and how that is working behind the scenes. So before we actually even go ahead to do an example or a demo on how to work with Git and GitHub, we need to know that there's a difference between Git and GitHub. So Git, then we have GitHub. So Git is what you have locally on your machine. When you type something like Git Init, this is what you have locally in your machine that helps you keep track of all the files of your project. And then we have GitHub. Now, think of GitHub as a hub, right? When we talk of a hub, this is a place where people bring things together, or just where people meet, or where, somewhere where people can hang out, something like a hub, you know? And then we have now GitHub. Now, when we're talking about GitHub, now this is a platform where now for all the projects that you've been working with them locally and tracking them using Git, now you want to push them to a hub, okay, where other collaborators can join you and then work on the same project. Because if you don't have GitHub, there's no way other developers or collaborators are going to get access to your code locally in your machine. You need to dump them somewhere. Once you dump them somewhere, they will be able to find the project, send them an invite, or if it's an open source, they will be able to clone it or fork it and then make their contributions to that project. And also Git will also allow you, the owner of the project, to track the different versions of each project. This therefore means that we need to have Git installed in our computer before we actually even think about GitHub. So how do we install Git in our computer locally? So we have a link here that you should visit to get the official Git source. So when I click on this link, that is https://git-sem.com downloads. So I'll paste this. The student of pasting it because I'll share this PowerPoint at the end of the meeting. So let's visit this link. Correct. So when we come here, this is the official site of Git. Now, depending on the machine that you are using, sorry, you can see my screen, right? So let's pause that for a moment. I'll take you through the PowerPoint first, and then we'll get back. I'll share my screen so that you can see everything as it is. Fantastic. So we'll just need to browse it and then go to the link, choose the version that we want, and then click the prompts that follow to install. And then once we install Git, we need to configure Git, because when contributing to a project, you need to identify yourself. We need to know if there is a change that has been pushed to our project. We need to know who did this, and how do we know that? Through your email and username that you use in Git, that is locally. So, because when you make a contribution, we want to be able to hold everyone accountable for all the contributions that are making. Also, if we have a bug in our code, we need to track it back to whoever pushed that bug to our code, all right? And that will allow us even to revert it back so that we can solve that bug that was introduced. So once we install Git, we are going to configure Git. So just hang on tight, because I'm going to show all this practically on a demo. So this is how to check your Git version to check if Git is installed. So let's go ahead. Now, configuring Git. Now, there's really a lot of things to configure once you install Git, but there are two most important details or information that you need to provide to Git so as to start contributing efficiently and following the best practice. That is one, we need to know your name. Which name are you using to contribute? That is it. We need to know your email address. So Git will want you to configure your name using this command here, git config global username. Also, Git will want to know your user email. And how do you configure that? Using this command, git config global user.email. So when we finally get to the demo session, I'm going to show you how you're going to replace everything here with your actual names and your email address. Move forward. Once you have that, you can be able to actually confirm that it is configured using a command that is git config. Then we have the global flag and the list flag, and that will return to you your user.name, that is my name, and your user.email, that is the email that you have configured for Git to use. And congratulations, now you have successfully configured Git on your machine. Correct. So moving forward, talk is cheap. Now let me show you how to do this. So now this is the point where I now want to share my screen so that you can actually get into the actual demo session. So just a minute as I share my screen. If you have any question in the meantime, please drop them on the chat. Drop on the chat so that we can actually take note of your questions that I will respond to towards the end of the meeting. So I'm sharing my screen. Do let me know if you can see my screen. Okay, so is my screen clearly visible to everyone? just react so that I can know that we are good to go. Thank you. So what we want to do, we want to start by actually going to this site. Now, this is the official site for you to download what we call Git. And this link will be shared. And also the PowerPoint presentation that I had will be shared so that you can follow up and then be able to download Git. But even if you don't have the actual link, when you come to Google and just type Git download, then the first search result is the official Git website. When you click on it, it takes you to the same page as I was here before. So here's what we have. Now, we want to download Git. You need to actually choose the Git that is designed for your operating system. For example, you can't download Git macOS version while you are using a Linux machine. You can't download a Linux machine when you are using a Windows machine. In my case, I am using Linux or Unix, and I'm using the Ubuntu distro. Therefore, I'll be able to click Linux or Unix. Okay. And then for Linux and Unix, the most recommended way I'll advise you to install any application is to always follow the commands that are provided to you that will go source for it from the repository, add the packages to your files, and then help you set up Git locally. So what you'll do, you'll just come here and check for the install your version of Linux. For example, we have Debian and Ubuntu. Or Ubuntu, we have Fedora, we have Gentoo, we have Arch Linux, we have OpenSUSE, we have Mageia. So you need to know which distro of Linux are you using. In my case, I'm using Debian or Ubuntu. Therefore, I need to follow exactly what is being provided here. All right. So what you need to do for Ubuntu users, you need to start up your terminal. So your terminal is right here. You can start it up, click on it, and then it will load and present you with a terminal or a prompt where you can actually give it any prompt. All right. Now, what you need to do in some cases, you need to give it this super user privileges. So if you have copy this wherever the way it is, ignore the hash, just copy the apt-get install Git. Right click and copy. And then coming to your terminal, you need to paste it. Okay. So I'm just giving you a demo because I already have Git installed. So this is how you're going to do it. In some cases, right now, let's see what we have. Could not open the file because the permission is denied. So you can try give it the super user privileges. How do you do that? You add a sudo just before the command itself. And then it will ask you for your password, which I'll provide right here. And that will try and download Git in my computer. All right. Now you see, I have 0 upgraded, 0 newly installed, 0 to remove, and 14 not upgraded. Why? Because as we speak, I already have Git installed. But for your case, if you don't have Git installed already, you'll need to copy this, put it right there. If it asks you for permission error, append the sudo apt-get install Git. Follow with these commands too to add the REPL to your machine locally. And then you need to update and then again apt install Git. By following exactly the way everything is right here, you will be now having your Git locally installed. And then now that Git is installed, how do I verify that I have Git installed? So let me clear my terminal. And then now I want to check for the version. To check for the version of Git installed, I need to do a Git, a space, a hyphen, and a V. This simply means give me Git version, Git flag V, then press enter. What do we get? I have Git version 2.40.1, and therefore I have Git installed. Okay, that is how we verify that we have Git installed. That is the first step. Now, the second step is we want to now find a way of configuring Git. Remember, we had that in our PowerPoint. So let me show you how that is done. We now want to configure Git. Now, to configure Git, we have commands that we want to use. You use git config global user.name. Then you pass your name, your actual name that you want to appear in your contributions. Once you configure that, the next thing you want to configure is your Git user email. This is the email that will be attached to all your contributions. But in my case, I already have them configured, and I just want to show you how they look, after which I'm going to show you how you can change them to something else, all right? So we need this command here, git config global list. Coming back to my terminal, what do I need to do? I just need to type git config -- global, and then -- list. Now, this should be able to give me my Git configuration. Let's see what we have. Fantastic. What do we have right here? We have user.name is Omolo Cliff Oganda. User.email is cliffoganda@outlook. And then http.postbuffer, this is like just to increase the limit of the size of files that you want to push to GitHub. Okay. Now, I want to assume that what I've passed here is incorrect, and I want to change it to show you how you're going to do it on your end if you are installing Git for the first time, all right? So how do we do that? We follow the command that we have here. If the username, git config -- global space user.name. So let me come back right here. Currently, my name is Omolo Cliff Oganda. So I will come and change it to something else. Git config global, then user.name. I want to change it to something else. Let's say Osego codes. Then I press enter. Let me also change the email. Suppose that is not the correct email that I'm using. How do I change the email? Simple. You just follow what you've done here. It's still git config global, but now instead of user.name, we use user.email. Okay. And to verify that, that is what we have here. So let's do that. How do we do that? Git config global, then user.email space, then now my email address that I intend to use from now onwards, that is cliffosego2000@gmail.com, right? Once we are here, also press enter, and I should expect that that has changed what I had initially to what I expect to use from now moving forward. How do we verify that? I will still use the same command that we have here. Let me just copy it. This will list for me my configuration for Git globally. So let me paste that, press enter. So let's verify that indeed it has changed. So user.name is now Osego Codes. Initially it was Omolo Cliff Oganda. User.email is now Cliff Osego 2000@gmail.com. Initially it was Cliff Oganda @outlook.com, right? That is how you configure Git. Now, every time I'm going to now push anything to GitHub, they will go alongside my details. With this, the owner of the project is able to tell that the person who made this change to this branch is Osego Codes, and his email address is cliffosego2000@gmail.com. So that is how you download Git, configure your Git username, configure your Git user email, and also to be able to view your configuration, we used git config global list. I hope up to that point we are together, right? And everyone can follow up and install Git. So next, let's move forward and with our slides and see what we have next. Let's go back here. So we have downloaded Git, we have configured Git, we have also verified that we can change what we have. And that is the point where we had talk is cheap, show me the code that we've shown. Now, I want us to now take it a step further. Start a project, show you whatever it takes, the steps it takes to start a project, initialize Git, track your files, know what is added and what is tracked, and then how to commit your code to make it ready to be pushed to GitHub. Remember, the hub is where every other developer will be able to get your code and contribute to it if they're public. If it's private, you still need to push it to the hub so that you can send them an invite for them to get access to your project. So let's start a new project, all right? So let's clear up everything we have here, and then I'll navigate to my favorite location for my projects. Let me see. Okay. So I'll make a new directory inside this folder. Let's call it open source, because that's what we are talking about. That's the theme of our study jam. So let me change directory into open source. And then I'm going to open my Visual Studio Code inside right here. Code space enter. So what we're currently doing, I'm showing you how to start a project, initialize Git, track your files, stage them, and commit them. Once your files are committed locally, it simply means you have packaged your code ready to be pushed to the GitHub where others can access it. So I'm opening here my Git Visual Studio Code. We'll write a simple project, then add Git to track our code. Okay, so just hang on. We got this. So remember, our folder is open source, or what we call directory. So let's write an HTML code. Let's just say we need index.html. Index.html. Okay, we got that file. And then we can use what we call the emmet completion to give us some boilerplate. How we do that? Just press the exclamation, and that should do us the magic. Let me give it time to load. We need to have something here, like a boilerplate. Once we have the boilerplate, we are going to see how to track it and how to make changes to that code. Once we make that change to that code, we want to again update it to our upstream. Our upstream is what is on the GitHub, okay? So let's have, exactly, so that's what we need. So this is a boilerplate for an index or a HTML file. So that's a really quick one. Let's just say open source as our title. And then let's have a tag here, call it session 1 for Git and GitHub study jam. Okay, so this is what we have, right? Now, currently, suppose anything happens to this code, I cannot track what I changed or when did I change it. Let me add something else just to make it more practical. Let's call it about.html. Also here, I did a quick boilerplate, and then let's give the title of about page. Okay, then right here we should need just a h1 tag, then say this is the about page. Fantastic. At this point, I have my code ready, assuming this is the old project that I'm having, okay, at this point. Now, I want to invite someone else, or I just want to keep track of the changes in my code. What I need to do, I just need to initialize Git in this directory, okay? So how you do that, you first open the terminal of your VS Code. You can do that using the Control key and the tilde key. The tilde key is the key just below your escape key, okay? Or you could just still come here and click on View, then find Terminal, click on that. And of course, you see we have Control and the tilde key there. Fantastic. Once you're in the terminal, ensure that you're currently in the open source. This should be same as what you have right here, okay? Once you are here, we now want to initialize a Git folder in our project. Now, how do we do that? You do that using this command, git space init. Init, in other words, initialize. Okay, press enter. So what do we get? Initialized an empty Git repository in this folder. All right. And if you look closely to the files that we had here, it has changed from the gray, normal gray, and now it's there in green. And we have another tag here, u. Okay. Let's now understand what is the u that we have here. At this point, everything in this directory or folder for Windows users is being tracked using Git, okay? And by the way, let me clear my terminal to show you that we have a Git folder right there. So if I try to list all the contents that we have inside this directory, let's do that, ls, you see we only have 2 files. But in the actual sense, we have 3 files, or could even be more than 3. One of them, and the one that is of interest to us, is the .git directory. How do we prove that we have that? You need to list all the hidden files. How? ls space -a. Fantastic. So what do we have? You see we have about.html, about HTML, we have index.html, and then we have .git. Now, this is what is responsible for tracking the changes that we have. Now, right now, everything has been tracked. And at this point, we haven't added anything to be tracked to the Git. That is why we have u. U means unstaged, meaning everything here is unstaged. And therefore, if suppose we close our laptop, we can't track our changes. So we need to stage them, right? To stage them is like making them ready to be committed. So how do we do that? You need to use the git add command, right? So I'll do a git. Let me zoom in so that we don't struggle seeing this. Thank you. So we need to use a git, then a space, then add space, then you give it an argument. The argument you give it is the name of the file that you want to track or to stage, okay? In this case, I want to stage about.html. So I need to type about.html that way. So this will change the status of about from unstaged to added. So let me press enter. What do we have? Take a closer look at about. It's now not a U, but an A. It means it's now not unstaged, but it's already added, ready for committing, or what we call in other terms, it has been staged, right? If I want to add something else, say, let's say index.html, I'll do the same, git add index.html. I press enter. Now everything is now on the staging, or they've been added to Git. The next thing I want to do is to now commit. It's like I'm saying my files are ready for now, and I think I need to commit them. So I want to track them now. Your files are not tracked until you commit them, okay? So when we commit, we use a very simple command. They all start with the git commit. But since we are committing, and this code will be contributed to by more than one person, you need to tell them, what did you do? So you need to pass some message. And to pass that message, you need to flag it with an M. This to tell it like this is the message for this commit. So then you pass the message inside speech marks. So let's say initialized the project. Okay. Then you press enter. Fantastic. Now what we have here, now we have our files have been tracked and committed. Now you see we have created mode of about HTML and index HTML. Okay. Taking you back to what we did here, git add, then the name of the file. This can be sometimes very tiresome. Okay. Let's take a scenario where you're working on something like a framework like React or Vue. You will have a number of files, many files. And trust me, you don't want to go one by one, adding each file you track. There is a shortcut for that. You can use a shortcut to add everything that we have in our project. So to demo that, let me clear my terminal once more, and then add new files here. Let's call it contact .html. Then you just get some boilerplate for a demo. Then a h1 tag, we call this contact page. Another one, let's add another file. Let's say home, not home, but we can, as developers, maybe you want to show us your projects.html page. So let's do a projects.html page. So we come here and just add some code. And you say right inside here, this will be a h1 tag for projects, right? Now we have 2 new files in our project, and then we want to add all of them. So how do we do that? How do we do that now? Remember, initially we did git add, and then the name, for example, projects. Git add projects, all right? But in this case, we have project, we have index, we have contact, we have about. I want to bundle them all together and stage them, okay? How I do that is using this shortcut, git add, and then I'm telling it, add everything in this repository, in this folder. So everything here will be added. Press enter. And you see at once, all of them are now added. Index and about have not changed because we already committed those changes. And then you can do the same. You'd commit, and then give us the message for that commit. You say added projects and contact. So when someone comes to your project, they'll be able to tell that for this commit, what the developer one did, they added the contact and projects page. Okay, that is how we work with this. Now that I've tracked everything, if I come right here and add something new, let's copy this and add a new tag. So we have a new tag. Take note what happens here. In the contact.html, we have now a flag M. Remember, we've been having a U and an A, and then now we have an M. M means modified, okay? Which means the file that we is currently in has been modified after being tracked, and therefore we still need to track those changes. Now, to help you visualize this, on your VS Code, on the left panel, there's something like, it resembles a menu side icon here. We have this icon that symbolizes source control. When I click on this, you can see everything that's happening here. Look at this. We have something here called changes. And the changes that we have are only on the contact.html. If I want to see what has been modified and how it differs from the original file, click on that file. Okay. Now, let's see what we have. You can see we have contact page, another contact page. This is what has been changed. Okay. Let me just expand it. This is what has changed in our file. We have added contact page, a new one right here. Still from here, because we made a change, you want to state those changes. The same procedure. It's very easy. Once you master how it goes, it remains unchanged. First, you need to git add everything. See what happens here. Stages have been changed. Stage changes. Do we notice that? Then we commit. Git commit. Then we say added a new tag. So then what we have, our VS control is now clear, which means everything has been tracked. That is how you go from initializing your Git, staging files, committing files, and seeing the changes in your files. So let me clear up something and just to give you a recap of how to master this. When you start, you want to ensure that you Git init. This will set up a Git repo located on your machine or on your project. After you made the changes, you want to set those changes using Git add. Let me use some breakers here. Okay, after Git init, you want to Git add. And you want to add everything to make your work easier. After Git add, what do you want to do? Git add has simply staged the changes, meaning they're ready to be committed or to be tracked. After staging, you need to commit your changes. Git commit, and the commit should have information attached to it, describing what you've done in a brief. And that message has to be supplied using this argument flag m, and then follows the message. For example, removed now the modules. Okay, so that is the flow of how to get started with Git. You initialize Git, you add Git, you add the files, and then you commit your changes. Okay, so that is it. Next, I want to invite someone else to join me in this project so that we can work together. How do I do that? Now, here is where GitHub comes in, the hub that I talked about when we started. So GitHub, you come to your browser and just search GitHub. Okay, once you have GitHub, the first search result is the actual link. Click on GitHub. Now, this will take you to a page that will enable you to sign up for an account. You must have an account to be able to use GitHub. Once you have that account, you'll log in, and then now we create what we call our repository. So just click on sign up for Git, and that should present you the form, how, and actually just changed. You provide your email here, then you continue, then we'll give you the prompts that you will follow to create your account. In my case, I already have GitHub account. So I want to log into my GitHub account. So you'll allow me to open another tab from my another browser. So let me just come here real quick. Hang on, guys. I'm showing you how we can push our code to GitHub to make it accessible to everyone in this meeting. So let me just drag it here. Just stay with me. I'm putting a new tab right there. I hope you can see my screen still. So once, hang on while it thinks. Yeah, thank you. So I go to my GitHub account. You just type github.com, then log into your account. That is what I need. Of course, I'm logged in. I don't think it will ask me for the password and everything. So exactly. So right now, I'm on my GitHub account. So in my GitHub account, what I need to do, I now need to create a repository. Now, what is a repository? Think of a repository as a folder that you had locally on your machine, okay? So to create a new repository, this is where you are going to push the code that you have locally. Now I click on new. Once I have new, tell us the name. The name is open source. Study Jam, okay? Just give it a name. And if you're part of organizations, you need to ensure that you are in the right organization. Click here, then you'll get everything that you want, all the organizations that you are in. For in this case, my own organization is Osego. And then just a description of that repository here. Let's say series for our collaboration. Then we have two types of repos. We have a public one and a private one. A public one is accessible to everyone. Anyone who can search you will find it. Private is one that only people you invite can be able to see it. So because we're talking about open source, let's make it public. Now I leave it as public. And the next thing I want to do is just create a repository. Now this is our repo that we already have. Coming down here, you will find a number of instructions telling you how to get started. So here they tell you, you can either create a new repository on the command line, which they are following what we did, git init, git add, commit, you see. Leave alone these ones, I'll explain them later. Or push an existing repository from the command line. So this is what we want to use because we already have an existing repo in our command line, which is this, okay? So what we need to do is to copy what we have on here and paste it where? On our local dev environment. So I'll do it step by step to make you understand. So copy this, copy, come back to your terminal, just delete everything we have here, and then paste. So we have git remote add origin, then the URL. So git remote now means like we are referring to a remote repository. That is something that is on our GitHub. And we want to add we want to point our local git to a remote git. So origin simply points it to the URL that we have here. So after this point, just press enter, and that will add it. To verify that, you need to do git remote space version. So it will tell you which repository is linked to this local repo. And that is what we have here, open source study jam.git. Let's go back and copy what we have next. We want to create a branch. We'll talk of branch as we go. For now, just like it the way it is. We want to create a branch. I come here and paste git branch main. So initially git used master branch, but master was removed because it kinda violates guidelines. So it is main. Now for the main, it's like we're now switching from one branch of our project to the main branch. Just press enter. Then if you check down here, now we have main, okay? And lastly, the last step that we want to partake is to push it, okay? Let's come back. Now, we already tracked everything locally. We've pointed our local git to a remote repository, and we've changed our branch from what we had to main. And now it's time to push it, to tell it, okay, now you go to the remote origin where everyone can get access to you. So I'll paste that last command here, git push upstream origin main. What this means, git, you know what it means, push, that is what it means, push it. Then flag u means upstream, which means we are pushing it remotely to a repository that is in GitHub. And where are we pushing it? We are pushing it to the origin. You can add many repositories here. We can have, for example, origin. If you are pushing it to Azure DevOps, you can use Azure instead of origin. But in this case, we have only origin. And then which branch? We want to push it to the main branch. Then press enter. So let's see what happens. Right now, if I come here, you see this is what we have here. Once this pushed, if I refresh, you will see that we have all the files that we had locally right inside here. So let's watch and see. So it's a network procedure. You see it's going fantastic. What do we have? Total objects is done and sent. Total are 11, resolving everything. Then where is it pushed to? It has been pushed to GitHub Osego Tech. This is my username, and the repository is open source study jam.git. Which branch? To the main branch. Now let's go back to our GitHub and refresh. Then let's see what we have right here. Fantastic. So what we have right here is exactly what we had locally. That is out.html, contact, index.html, and projects. Right now, if I copy this link and come to our meeting right here, I want to paste it in the chats. And you tell me if you can actually be able to see everything that is in that repo. Let me paste it right there. So I want you guys to click on that link and tell me if the files that are created locally is what you see. Right there. Once we get 2 responses, we are sure that everything works. So show me. Someone click on that link. Tell me that you can see the files that I've just created locally here. We just need 2 reactions, and we are sure that that is working. Anyone? Anyone? Just react. Confirm that you can see that those files, the index, about, projects, and contact. If you can see all those files, we are good to go, and we are sure that our repo is ready and anyone can contribute. Thank you, Asong, for confirming that. So let's continue. So to continue, I want to just make a small change locally, push it, and then show you how it will happen here. So I come here and say, now I want to add index.js. Now this is a JavaScript file, and let me just say console log hello world. So you see, this is unstaged. How do we do it? Clear the terminal. Simple git add, git commit. Then I say added JS. Now it is committed, it is tracked locally, but in the upstream, it's not there. So let's confirm that. If I refresh here, there's nothing of JS. Why? Because I haven't pushed it upstream, right? I need to push it upstream. Remember, how did we do that? Git, then what are we doing? We are pushing where? Upstream. But since we already set the upstream before, you don't need to again tell it we are pushing to upstream. We just need to tell it the name of our remote repo, which was, remember, it was origin. Then which branch? Main branch. Then press enter. Give it time because it's a network process. It will push. And now if we go back to our GitHub, we'll be able to see that index.js is already there. So let me show you that, how that works. Fantastic. Coming back to what we have here. Remember, we don't have index, but if I refresh, now we have index here, and the content is exactly what we have, console log, hello world. Now, to wind up, because of time, let me show you, because we are in the era of AI. We are in the era of LLMs, okay? You no longer need to write the commit messages on your own. You can use GitHub Copilot to that. And remember, part of our study jam topics that we are supposed to cover are things like Copilot. Now I'm introducing you briefly to Copilot, how to use it to make your commit messages more precise, more informative, and that follows the guidelines. Okay, for us to that, let me do this clear. So a quick one, that's another file. Let's say, let's call it contacts.js. Then I will say log contacts. That's a simple one like that. So what we need to do, use this extension, source code extension here. Click on it, and then you see we have changes. Everything that we've done in the command line here, we can do it right from here using the GUI. So if I click on this, I will be staging the changes. So we have view, it will change to an A. So click on that. Now we have contacts has been staged. After which, remember, we add, then we commit. So right up here, I have a commit message. But if you are clean enough, you can see something like an AI here. So if I click on this, let me click on that. Let's see what happens. What do we have? Add contact.js file with initial console log. And that is exactly what I've done. I've simply added a contact.js file with a content of console.log contacts. Then click on commit. After committing, remember, we need to push them to the upstream, to our remote repository, to make it available for other developers. We did that using the command line. We can do it still in the GUI here. Sync the changes. Click on that, and then it will prompt you, asking you, this action will pull and push commits from and to origin main. That's okay with us. Click that, okay. Then see what happens. It's syncing. In other words, it's pushing our local changes to the remote repository, okay? Let's see what we have here. We have no contact.js. Once it's pushed, we refresh, we get it right here. So let's go back and ensure everything is working. Let's see.
Excuse me, we have 5 minutes left. before we move to the Q&A phase. We have 5 minutes
Yes.
left.
Okay. So this is the final stage. Now it's committed, right? Now coming right here, back to our GitHub, if I refresh, let's go to this home directory. Now we have contact.js. And that is how you start with Git, initialize Git, add, commit, and then push them. So that is for it for our today's session. And now I think for now, we can just get straight into the question session. So thank you. So do you have any questions, Roitanko?
Yes, actually, we got so many questions both in the Q&A section and in the chat. So we are going first to start with the question present in the chat. So
Okay.
so the first question is, why do we use the Git dash dash global option? Actually, sometimes when you were typing, you use like git config dash dash global. So the person is asking, why do we use the global option?
Okay. So let me answer that with the commands right here. Okay, so I hope it's loading so that we can see what we need to have. Fantastic. Now, when we use git config dash dash global, it means we are configuring Git globally in our machine, right? This means that if I open it, any project in any folder in my machine, I will be able to access and use Git. That is why we use global, okay? And when I use something like Git init without the global thing, it means I want to only initialize Git in the current directory where I am. Now, global is to make Git available everywhere in our machine. It's like when you install something like Node, you need to add it to the environmental path to make it accessible anywhere in any direction. That is what we have here, config global. But the more we go, we learn about Git config local, which means I want to use a different details for the specific project. That is the difference. Global means everywhere. So I hope that answers your question. Is that okay?
Yeah, now I think it's okay. So let's move to the next one. What is the purpose of git dash dash list?
Okay. Git dash list, let me show you. Uh-huh. Git config global list. Now, suppose you come to your project and you're wondering what email did I use? What time did I use? Then Git config global is like telling it, please list for me my configuration for Git. So it will show you the username, the email, the buffer, and any other configuration that you made. Let's redo that really quick here. Let me clear. Git config global dash dash list. You see what it does? It shows me my configuration details, my username, email, and post buffer. That is what list does. That answers the question, right?
Yeah, perfect. So now let's move on to the next one. What is an
Okay.
upstream?
Upstream is
Yeah.
to mean that we want to push our code to a remote repository. So you have to tell Git that you're pushing it upstream. Upstream is to refer to a remote repository. So it's something that is going to happen over the network. If you listen clearly, I was mentioned that is a network process. So we give it time for it to go. So when you are initially, adding Git repo for the first time, you have to tell it, I'm pushing it upstream. Is to mention like you're pushing it over the network to the remote repository.
Okay. So
Yes.
next one is, what is the difference between the main and the master branch?
Okay, so main and master branch, actually there's an explanation that was here. Uh, let me see if Google has it. Now, this is the thing. The master branch is no different than any other branch in a clone Git repo, except historically it has been the default name used when the first branch is created. But if you, this has not the explanation I'm looking for. If you go to the official GitHub explanation why master branch was not used or recommended, it's because it has the sense of master. When we talk about master, I hope you get what it means, the master. But then the difference between a master and a branch, there's no difference. We can have different branch names that have the same code content. How you name your branches is up to you. For example, if I suppose right now I want to work on a feature called login page, I can come here and just say Git branch. I want to create a new branch. Also, I'll give it a flag of B and say login. Now this will create for me a new branch called login. Okay. Now that branch, let's see. Git branch login. Oh, Git checkout should be Git checkout. Git checkout, because it's already not there, it's not existing, you give it a flag B to create it. Switch to a new branch login, okay? So branch names really have no relevance at all, but usually when naming your branch, you want to name them to give a sense of what that branch is working on. For example, if you're working on a login feature, you want to name your branch something like fit login, okay? Now master and main, no difference. No big difference, just the names. But it's recommended use main. Master's been ignored. Use main for your main branch. So for your head branch, that is the main feature, always name it as main. I hope that answers our question.
Yeah. The answer is clear. So
Yep.
now in the Q&A section, we got the first question is what is an hash, and the second is why are the files are green when like you type git add. I think it has changed into a green. So this is
Okay.
quite a funny question,
Oh,
but
yeah, sure,
actually you
sure.
can answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me answer that. So the hash we won't answer today because that is now advanced Git, which we're going to look on in our second session. This was like a soft intro to get you started. So for the hash and the logs, those are things that we're going to have in our second session. So allow me answer the green, okay? So the moment I type git init, everything turned green, right? It's because that's an indication that whatever files we're having in this directory, they are now being tracked. In other words, we have introduced Git directory here to track all the files here. If I create a new file here, let's say, how do we call this? Any name, let's say home.html. You see it's green, which means it's being tracked. The other ones are now not green because they're already tracked. This one needs to be tracked. And now if I add, let's do this git add. Now it's not from a U to a means the stage or added. If I commit, the green will go away because it's now tracked. Git commit. Let's call it green. You see it goes away, which means everything here is now tracked. That's the response to that question. I hope that answers it correctly.
Yeah. You answered it perfectly. So the next one, what's the difference between fetch and pull? The third is what's the difference between track and stage? So you were talking about track, stage. So what is the difference between the two words?
Sure. So let's start with the difference between fetch and pull. Fine. Fetch and pull, they all do the same thing, okay? But in a different context. Pull, if I am in the current directory branch, let's just show you here. I'm in a login branch, okay? In my repository here, how many branches do we have? We have main branch, and the login is not there, okay? If I come back to my login here, I want to push my login. So let me say it's added already. So let's check git status to see the status. everything was okay. But then now I want to push this branch. So git push origin, but I want to push to a new branch called login. Let's see what happens. That will create a new branch upstream. Just a minute so that we can see that. It's actually pushing. Now, once I'm here, I can create like a new branch. If someone else was working with me on this project, let's say it's Rointako, and Rointako was working on a register page. Now I'm in the login page. I just want to switch back to the main page because the main is our head. Now let me switch back. Git checkout main. I'm back to our main page. Okay. Now if you see our main page, main has no home. Main has no home.html. Okay. And now I want to get that update. How do I do that? I will do git pull origin and then login. That should push the changes in the login and merge them to what I have in the main here. Now, git pull is designed to pull specific branch, okay, and those changes. Now you see it has already pulled that, and now we have home right here. You see what happens? That is git pull. I have to target a specific branch. Now, suppose now what I was talking about Raintako, if he was working on a register page, and in my local development, I have no register page, and then we have someone else working on booking, someone else working on orders, and I want to have all these branches locally, you use git fetch. Git fetch will pull everything in the remote repository to your local repository, and then from there, you can check out to a specific branch. Does that answer our question?
So thank you. I think we have answered all the questions in the chat. So it's a quick reminder. So for those who are joining us, so this is a 4-day training. So today is the first day. The second day is on Wednesday. And actually, I played you guys so that you will be attending the other session, because at the end there will be insensitive. So LinkedIn premium subscription vouchers will be given to those who have attended. So I hope that all of you will be again for the next session. Thank you. So if you have anything to add, Omolo, feel free.
Okay, so thank you all for attending this event, and I want to hope that it is making some change on your skill set. GitHub is really something that as a developer, you have to know it and know it good. So it's something that you really need to take your time to learn, because in any industry that is a developer industry, you have to use Git in your day-to-day life. Also for your personal projects, you need to use Git. For open source contribution, you need Git. So I want to encourage all of us for our next meetup on Wednesday. Please, we want to see you again, because we are going to advanced topics, how to use Copilot for other things apart from just writing commit messages. Yeah, and that's it. Also, for this session, I have, let me just share something really quick. A minute while I check that. Sorry. Let's check that really quick. Okay, so I'll share that so that we can actually, it's a minute. Okay, I got it. Okay, so in the chats, I have shared just a link to my YouTube channel. Also, you can support me by subscribing. I have a number of tutorials on Azure and full stack development, backend development. You can support me by subscribing. And thank you all. I hope to see you all on Wednesday for more interesting session like this. Thank you very much. And I hope we all have a good evening. For those of us who are joining during the day, have a good day ahead. So thank you all. And at this point, if there being no any other question, we can leave at our own pleasure. Thank you, Rontako.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.